Let me tell you something that might sting a little. In the beginning, your silence doesn't shake him. It doesn't scare him. It doesn't move him. It doesn't make him sit up and reevaluate everything. Not yet. At first, he doesn't see it as a storm. He sees it as a cloud passing. You think your silence is power, but to him it's just a strategy, a brief time out before you come running back. He's comfortable, maybe even smug. He thinks he's seen this movie before, and he already knows the ending. You'll disappear for a little while, maybe to get his attention, maybe to make him miss you, and then you'll come back like you always do. And that is the biggest illusion he's living in. See, when someone has gotten used to your presence, your love, your attention, your consistent care, they begin to treat it as background noise. Not because they're evil, not because they're heartless, but because consistency, when unappreciated, becomes invisible. They register your kindness as a constant. Your check-ins, normal. Your emotional investment expected. Your affection assume. And so when it's gone at first, they don't even notice the void. Because people rarely notice what they took for granted until it stops showing up. He tells himself, she's just playing a game. She wants me to chase her. But I don't need to. Yeah. She'll come around. And maybe that's what you've done in the past. Maybe you've broken the silence before. Send that late night message. Double checked if he was okay. Tried to keep the connection alive, even when he was emotionally asleep. So now, even your silence doesn't feel dangerous. It feels predictable. Here's the painful truth. He doesn't feel urgency because he doesn't feel risk. There's no fear of loss. No anxiety. No wake up call. Because deep down, he still believes you'll fold first. He's betting on your need for connection. He's banking on your history of caring more. He's confident your emotions will betray you before his ego does. And that is the cage you've been trapped in. You've been in a silent tug of war where the one who cares more loses first. Where vulnerability becomes weakness. Where emotional investment becomes a liability. And he thinks you'll lose again. He's not thinking about you in panic. He's not losing sleep. He's not scrolling through your old messages. Not yet. Because your silence at this stage doesn't feel like absence. It feels like a pause. And here's the danger. This is the exact moment most people sabotage themselves. They break the silence too soon. They reach out first. Not because they're weak, but because they assume his inaction means he doesn't care. They confuse silence with indifference. They mistake calm for closure. They think if he really cared, he'd reach out. If I mattered, he'd say something. But what they don't realize is this: he's not doing nothing because he doesn't care. He's doing nothing because he still do. That's the loop. That's the lie. He's still coasting off the version of you that always checked in, always showed up, always forgave. And unless you hold the line, unless you let silence mature into space, you'll never have to question that narrative. Because the moment you send that message, that emoji, just checking in, you confirm what you already believed. You would never really walk away. And so the cycle continues. Let me say this to you with love and truth. Your silence is only as powerful as your commitment to hold it. Silence isn't passive. It's not just the absence of words. It's the withdrawal of energy. The absence of reassurance. The missing heartbeat in his emotional rhythm. But silence takes time to echo. And in the beginning, it doesn't hurt him. It flatters him. He interprets it as you trying to get his attention. He sees it as a tactic, not a transformation. And so he waits calm, confident, unbothered. He believes this is temporary. He believes you'll return. He believes you still care more. But here's the shift. You're not being silent to make a point. You're being silent because you're finally listening to your own. You're not just stepping away. You're stepping back into your own self-worth. And the longer you hold that silence, the more it changes shape from a tool to a truth, from a gesture to a new identity. And in that space, you grow. You stop waiting. You stop checking. You stop measuring his responses to validate your worth. because the silence that he dismissed in the beginning will become the silence that wakes him up in the end. But not yet. He's still blind. He's still sure. He's still convinced this is just a waiting game. The question is, are you going to prove him right? Or are you going to evolve past the version he thought he knew? Because he's not afraid of your silence until you become someone who doesn't need to break it. Let me ask you this. Are you being silent just to see what he does? Or are you being silent because you finally remembered who you are without him? If this message resonates with you, take a moment to reflect. And if you're ready, share your story in the comments. Your story might be the exact breakthrough someone else needs today. Like this video, subscribe for more, and thank you for being a part of this journey of healing, growth, and reclaiming your power. Let's keep going. Why doesn't he chase you? Why after all the time, the love, the presence you gave him, does he sit back unmoved, unhurried, unbothered? Let me tell you something about the ego. The ego doesn't chase. The ego waits to be chased. Because the ego is built on illusion. And one of its strongest illusions is this: if I don't move, they'll come to me. In the mind of a man who's always had your attention, silence isn't a warning. It's a strategy. He assumes you're trying to provoke a reaction. He assumes you're bluffing. Because for him, emotional distance isn't loss. It's leverage. Let me explain. When someone has easy access to your time, your thoughts, your vulnerability, they don't see these things as gifts. They see them as guarantees. And the ego feeds on guarantees. The ego whispers, she'll be back. She always comes back. She's just testing. I can wait this out. I still have the power. As long as I don't reach out first, I'm in control. And that's the currency his ego thrives on. He doesn't want connection. He wants confirmation. Confirmation that you still care, that you're still affected, that your world still revolves around him. But here's the catch. The longer he believes he's still in control, the less he feels the need to act. Because why would he chase what he still believes is already his? This is where we often get it twisted. We assume his silence means he doesn't feel anything. That he doesn't miss us. That he doesn't care. But the truth, he might care deeply. But the ego is louder than the emotion. The ego doesn't allow vulnerability. It doesn't allow humility. It doesn't allow risk. And chasing you, admitting he misses you, initiating conversation. Those are all risks. Risks that he might get ignored. Risks that he might get rejected. Risks that he might look like the one who lost power. So instead, he stays quiet. Not because he's strong, but because he's scared. Scared of what it would reach out and not hear back. Scared of what it would say about him to need you now. Scared to see himself as vulnerable in a game where he once held all the cards. See, the ego doesn't fear losing you. It fears losing the illusion of control over you. And that illusion is rooted in predictability. You've always been there. So he thinks you always will be. You've always made the first move. So he thinks you still might. You've always been the emotional anchor. So he thinks you're still holding the rope. But here's where everything shifts. When your silence becomes steady, it becomes unsettling. He can only sit in comfort as long as your absence still feels like a tactic. But when it begins to feel like a new reality, that's when the ego starts to crack. Because now instead of waiting for your message, he starts to check for it. Not out of curiosity. But out of discomfort, that's the difference. There's a concept in psychology called loss aversion. It means we feel the pain of losing something far more intensely than the pleasure of gaining something. And for the first time, he starts to sense a loss. Not in words, not in confrontation, but in energy. There's no check-in, no subtle signs, no reaction to his social media. Nothing. And suddenly, the control he thought he had starts slipping through his fingers because silence when extended doesn't echo back. It absorbs, and the ego begins to panic in a vacuum. Now he's not just wondering where you are. He's wondering who you are because this version of you, the one who's silent, the one who's still the one who's not chasing, explaining, proving. That version is new, and new is unpredictable. And unpredictability disrupts the ego's comfort zone. Let me ask you this: when he was in control, how did he respond to your needs? Did he make you wait hours for replies while he posted online? Did he dismiss your concerns with logic or silence? Did he show up only when he felt like it disappear when it got too real? That wasn't strength. That wasn't confidence. That was ego. Untouched, unquestioned, unchallenged. But now you've introduced a variable. Your stillness is confusing because when someone loses control, the first thing they try to do is test the waters. Not with honesty, not with apology, but with crumbs. He might like an old photo. Watch your story. Send a hey like nothing happened. But he's not checking on you. He's checking if he still matters. It's not about reconnection. It's about relevance. Because the ego, more than anything, fears irrelevance. That's what you've become. Not a chase, but a mirror. A mirror to his own pride. His own passivity, his own inability to step forward without a guarantee. And that is exactly why you must hold your silence. Because silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of power. It's the declaration that you no longer exist to validate his position in your life. You don't owe him a reaction. You don't owe him confirmation. You don't owe him comfort for his silence. The ego doesn't chase until the silence louder than the illusion. Until you become unpredictable. Until your energy no longer orbits around his. Until you stop waiting for him to see your worth and start living like you know it. So don't be fooled by his lack of action. It's not strength. It's not control. It's fear disguised as pride. And that pride, it will become his prison. Because the longer he waits, the more powerful you become, and the harder it is to reach a version of you that's no longer reaching for him. There comes a moment when your silence stops being invisible. It stops being something that lingers in the background, easily dismissed or explained away. It becomes something else. It becomes a presence. And that presence, it walks into the room before you do. It starts to follow him, not like a person, not like a ghost, but like a shift in the atmosphere. In the beginning, your silence was passive. He didn't feel it. But now he starts noticing it in places he never expected. He picks up his phone out of habit, expecting your name on the screen. Nothing. He scrolls through his messages looking for comforting, familiar, still nothing. He tells himself it's fine, that it's temporary. But something in his chest starts to tighten and he doesn't know why. What you need to understand is this. Silence is not a void. It is a vacuum. It pulls energy inward. And if you've been pouring energy into someone who's never had to earn it, your withdrawal is louder than any confrontation could ever be. Because energy, once removed, leaves an imprint. It's not the dramatic breakups that haunt people. It's the stillness afterward. It's the moments when no one's checking in. When no one's sending good morning messages. When no one's reacting to his stories. When the air is just quiet. And suddenly he's not so sure anymore. Not so sure you'll return. Not so sure he's still in control. Not so sure who you are when you're not orbiting around him. Because silence, when done right, doesn't scream. It whispers in ways that only the soul can hear. He begins to remember not because he wants to, but because your absence is reminding him. He remembers the way you used to laugh at his stupid jokes. The way you always seemed to know when something was wrong. The way you gave a damn when he didn't even ask for it. And now that energy is gone, you didn't take anything from him. But you stopped giving everything to him. And that's the shift. shift. When you were always available, he never had to wonder. When you were always responsive, he never had to reflect. But now that you're silent, he has no choice but to feel. And that feeling, it's uncomfortable. It's the type of discomfort that sneaks in during the quietest parts of the day. Like when he wakes up and there's no message from you. When he's had a long day and realizes he doesn't have that person to vent to. When he's scrolling through social media and doesn't see your name in the viewers list. You've gone silent, somehow you're everywhere. That's the irony. Because when you were present all the time, he didn't notice you. But now that you're gone, he can't stop noticing the lack of you. This is where the ego begins to shift into the background, and something deeper starts to take root. Doubt, but not doubt in you. Doubt in himself. He starts to wonder why hasn't she reached out? How long is she going to do this? Wait, is she really done? These questions swirl in his mind, unspoken but loud. See, here's what happens. When someone believes they have you figured out, they stop paying attention. They tune out. They take shortcuts. They stop being present. But the moment you act in a way that breaks the mold, you disrupt their entire emotional pattern. And now instead of relaxing into the belief that you're just taking a break, he's obsessing over the possibility that you've outgrown him. That maybe this isn't a tactic. Maybe this isn't a test. Maybe this is transformation. You've become unpredictable. And unpredictability is what triggers the human brain into hyper-awareness. Think about it. When everything is predictable, we stop noticing. We walk the same street every day and never notice the cracks in the pavement. We hear the same noise every night and sleep right through it. But when something shifts, we jolt. And that's what you've done. You've disrupted the expected. And in doing so, you've woken him up not with noise, but with absence. Let me be clear. Your silence isn't weak. It's disruptive. It challenges his assumptions. It breaks the rhythm of his ego. And most importantly, it puts the focus back on you. You're no longer giving him the emotional highs and lows he was used to. You're no longer the one initiating, managing or maintaining the connection. You've shifted the weight. You've reclaimed your power. And now he's the one checking the phone. He's the one refreshing your profile. He's the one wondering if you're thinking about him. But you're no longer giving him clues. And in the absence of certainty, the mind spirals. Let me explain something deeper. When a person feels certain, they get comfortable. When they feel uncertain, they get curious. And when they feel lost, they start to value what they took for granted. You've removed yourself as a constant and become a question mark. And the human mind is addicted to answering questions, especially the ones it didn't expect to ask. So now he's looking for evidence, searching for signs, analyzing your behavior, trying to determine have you moved on? Have you met someone new? Are you over this? But the silence gives him nothing. And that nothingness starts to grow in weight. Because silence when you truly commit to it, stops being passive. It becomes a form of presence. It becomes a statement. It becomes a mirror one he cannot look away from. He used to think he knew you. But now he's not so sure. He used to think you'd always be there. But now he's questioning everything. And that, my friend, is when the real transformation begins. Not just in how he sees you, but in how you've begun to see yourself. Because silence doesn't just shift his world. It shifts yours. You begin to realize the energy you were pouring outward. You can now redirect inward. You begin to feel the peace that comes no longer performing for someone else's attention. You begin to remember who you were before you made them the center of your emotional universe. That is the true energy shift. And once you feel that power, once you taste that clarity, you'll never settle for someone who only notices your presence when it's gone. There's a moment in every transformation when the old version of you dies. Not with drama, not with fireworks, but in silence. That's when people get uncomfortable. Not because you are loud, but because you become unpredictable. And unpredictable energy is the most powerful energy in the world. Let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed how people only start paying attention when you stop acting the way they expected? You stop texting first. And suddenly they notice the absence. You stop explaining yourself and suddenly they're confused. You stop checking on them and suddenly they're wondering what's wrong. But nothing's wrong. You're just no longer running the same emotional script. You've broken the pattern. And that shift rattles people. Especially those who are comfortable in your predictability. He used to know your next move. He could anticipate when you text, how you'd respond, how long your silence would last before you cracked. He had you mapped. He knew the route to your heart, even if he didn't always bother to take it. But now you've rewritten the map, and he's lost. At first, he tries to act normal. He pretends like your silence doesn't bother him. He posts stories to see if you'll watch. He likes a photo from 3 months ago, hoping you'll get the hint. But deep down, he's panicking not because of what you've done, but because of what you've stopped doing. You see, when someone has relied on your reaction for validation, your lack of response, they're unraveling. Your silence used to be temporary, a message, not a move. But this time, it's different. You're not just being quiet. You've changed the way you exist in the story. You're not waiting. You're not longing. You're not playing. And that right there is what he never expected. Because when you break the pattern, you break his certainty. And certainty is what allowed his ego to thrive. He thought he knew you. He thought he had time. He thought you'd always been first. But now he doesn't know where you stand. And that confusion, that unpredictability, it makes him spiral. He starts asking questions he never had to ask before. Why hasn't she checked in? Is she seeing someone else? Did I push her too far? He'll never say these things out loud, not yet. His pride won't let him. But his mind is working overtime trying to solve a puzzle that no longer follows the rules he created. And this is where power shifts. Let me break this down clearly. People fear what they can't control. They fear it because it forces them to confront the truth. And here's the truth. He's starting to realize you're no longer playing the role he assigned you. You're no longer the woman who over-explains, who reaches out, who waits by the phone hoping today will be different. You're the woman who evolved. You've become silent, but not because you're empty. Because you're full of boundaries, full of clarity, full of the peace that comes when you stop trying to prove your worth to never ready to receive it. And he's feeling it, not because you told him, but because you didn't. See, when someone breaks a pattern, when they no longer respond to the same emotional triggers, it reveals everything. It reveals who was in control. It reveals who was performing. It reveals who actually cared. And now you're not reacting. That's what's shaking him. Because reactions are feedback. And when you stop giving feedback, people are forced to face themselves. Your unpredictability doesn't mean you're playing games. It means you're done playing his. You're no longer seeking closure, you're creating it. You're no longer hoping he'll change. You're accepting that you have. That's why he's feeling restless. Because for the first time, he doesn't know if you still care. And the truth is, maybe you don't. Maybe your silence stopped being a message for him and became medicine for you. Maybe you finally realized that you're never supposed to convince someone your value to protect it. Maybe this time your silence isn't about making him notice you, but finally noticing yourself. That unpredictability isn't spite. It's evolution. It's what happens when a woman reclaims her story and stops letting someone else edit the script. Now let's go deeper. When he starts noticing your silence is a new normal, something strange happens inside him. He starts trying to provoke a response, not because he wants to reconnect, but because he wants to reestablish control. He might post things to get a reaction. He might reach out with, I was just thinking of you. He might drop breadcrumbs of affection, testing to see if you'll follow. But here's where your strength is tested. distracted. Don't break the pattern you've outgrown just because someone else has started to panic. Your silence has started to rewire his perception of you. Don't disrupt that process to ease his discomfort, because the discomfort you feel when breaking a pattern is temporary. But the power you gain, that stays. You're teaching him something not with lectures, but with energy. You're teaching him that access to you is earned, not assumed. That attention is a privilege, not a right. That when a person becomes unpredictable, it's not because they've lost their mind, it's because they've found their worth. Now, here's the most fascinating part. He used to be confident that you would always be around. Now he's unsure if he even knows who you are anymore. And that uncertainty is what makes your silence echo. Not because you disappeared, but because you reappeared in a version of yourself that he never expected. You've gone from being predictable to being powerful, from being constant to being consequential. And when someone finally understands that they can no longer predict your reaction, they start fearing your rejection. That's the real change. That's the emotional earthquake that makes him tremble quietly, internally, day by day. Because when you break the pattern, you break the emotional contract you signed forever. But here's what he didn't know. You've rewritten the contract, and now you're the one holding the pen. There's a tipping point in every silent transformation. It doesn't come with fireworks. It doesn't come with a breakdown or an emotional apology. It comes quietly when the roles reverse. When the person who once waited is now the one being waited on. At first, he thought you'd fold. He thought you'd crack. He thought your silence was a temporary storm that would blow over like it always did. But it didn't. This time, it stayed. This time, you stayed quiet. And now something shifted inside him. He's no longer playing the game. He's not controlling the tempo. He's not dictating the narrative. He's doing what you used to do. He's waiting. He picks up his phone more often now, not to message you, but to check. He scrolls. Hoping your name shows up somewhere. He watches your stories to feel connected, even if you never respond. And then he starts thinking about the what ifs. What if you're done? What if you've moved on? What if the silence is no longer a pause, but a new chapter? See, there's a hidden fear in every person who's taken someone for granted. The fear that one day the person they thought would always be there won't be. That fear, it's what's beginning to eat at him. He used to feel power in not reaching out. Now he feels anxiety in your lack of response. Because you've disrupted the rhythm, he relied on the rhythm he got to stay emotionally still while you danced around his indifference. But now you've sat down, you've gone still. And suddenly he's the one doing the emotional math. He's wondering what day it was when you last reached out. He's counting how many mornings he's woken up without your message. He's thinking about moments small, insignificant at the time where he dismissed you, ignored you, overlooked you. And now those moments are replaying in his mind on loop. Because that's what happens in a role reversal. When the attention stops, when the energy stops flowing toward him, when he stops being the center of someone's universe, he starts noticing everything he didn't say, everything he didn't do, everything he assumed he had more time to fix. But now time feels different. It used to move slowly when you were waiting for him. Now it moves fast for him, and he's racing against the possibility that your silence might be permanent. Let me tell you something powerful. When you stop giving your energy freely, you don't just create space. You create mystery. And mystery is magnetic. See, people don't chase what's obvious. They chase what's unclear. They chase what they can't predict. And for the first time, you have become unpredictable. He doesn't know what you're thinking. He doesn't know where you stand. He doesn't know if you still care. And that more than anything is what's breaking him down from the inside. Because as long as he knew how much you cared, he could stay passive. He could sit back. He could be lazy with your heart. He could assume tomorrow would always give him another chance. But now he's unsure. And uncertainty is what flips the roles. He's feeling things you used to feel. The hesitation, the checking, the self-questioning, the weight of being emotionally unsure. He's wondering, should I reach out? Would it even matter now? What if I say something and she doesn't respond? These were your thoughts once, but now they're his. And this reversal is not just about silence. It's about evolution. You've stopped seeking. You've started seeing. You no longer see him as the source. You found your own. You no longer need his words. You've given yourself closure. And now he's the one reaching for something he never learned how to value. Let's pause here for a second. When people are in control, they're rarely reflective. Comfort dulls self-awareness. Discomfort creates introspection. He starts asking, was I too cold? Did I expect too much? Did I think she'd always wait? And here's the truth. He did. Because you taught him unintentionally that you were always available. That no matter how he showed up, you would still care. Still respond. Still fight. But this version of you, you're not fighting anymore. You're choosing peace over chaos. Silence over noise. Freedom over fixation. And that is what's haunting him. Because now you're not just unpredictable. You're unavailable. Not in a vengeful way. Not in a manipulative way. But in a healed way. You're no longer someone trying to get back into his life. You're someone deciding whether he deserves a place in yours. And that power is what he never saw coming. He never expected the woman who always reached out, always made space to disappear into stillness. And now he's in limbo. Because the moment he sends that message, he'll have to confront your new standard. He'll have to earn access again. He'll have to take responsibility. He'll have to risk rejection. And for someone who's never had to do that, it's terrifying. But here's the most important part of this entire reversal. You are not waiting anymore. You're not sitting in silence hoping for a message. You're not refreshing his page. You're not giving your power away. You've broken the pattern. You've reclaimed your energy. And now he is sitting in the exact seat you sat in for so long. He's the one waiting. He's the one hoping. He's the one wondering. That is the role reversal. And it's not petty. It's not revenge. It's balance. Because every time someone finally feels the weight of what they didn't appreciate, they are given the chance to evolve. But whether they rise or fall, that's no longer your responsibility. Regret isn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't slam the door open. It doesn't scream. It creeps in. Softly, slowly, like the cold realization that the door you left open is finally closed. And that's where he is now. Not in panic, not in rage, but in quiet, disorienting regret. Because something's beginning to dawn on him. He didn't just lose access to you. He lost the version of you who would have forgiven him. The version who would have jumped at his message, answered his call, celebrated his crumbs. And now you're not celebrating crumbs anymore. See, the silence he once dismissed has turned into something more powerful than he ever expected. It's not just silence now. It's distance. It's detachment. It's the absence of urgency, of neediness, of the emotional hunger that once kept him in control. And he feels it. Every time he checks his phone and sees nothing. Every time he opens your chat and stares at the last message. Every time he scrolls your profile and realizes you're not trying to be seen anymore. You're just gone. That's when it starts. The fear of regret. He tells himself at first she's just proving a point. She'll reach out when she calms down. She always does. But then something terrifying happens. He starts to believe maybe you won't. That maybe this time you're actually done. Not angry. Not bitter. Just done. And that's the version of you he never prepared for. Because a woman who's angry still cares. A woman who's jealous still feels connected. A woman who's silent but detached. She's gone in a way no message can reach. That's when he begins to revisit the moments that didn't seem important at the time, when you said you felt unseen and he shrugged it off. When you opened up and he changed the subject. When you pulled back and he didn't lean in. All those little moments, they're echoing now. And this time, he's listening, but regret doesn't show up empty-handed. It brings clarity, and clarity hurts when it's late. He's starting to realize what he had. But more importantly, he's realizing what he did with it. He thought your love was forever access. He thought your patience was infinite. He thought he could always come back when he was ready. But silence has taught him words never could. There are consequences to taking a good heart for granted. There's a point where even the most loving woman runs out of reasons to stay. And maybe you didn't leave in anger. Maybe you didn't leave to prove anything. Maybe you just got tired of holding a connection that felt one-sided. That's the part you didn't expect, that your silence wasn't revenge. It was release. You let go. Not because you wanted to, because you had to. And now he's the one gripping empty air. Let's talk about that moment he's living in now. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's not even visible to anyone else. But inside he's crumbling because the mind doesn't let go of something it never had to fight for until it's gone. Now he's replaying conversations, reading old messages, zooming in on your photos, trying to find clues that you still care. He's haunted by a question that used to belong to you. Did I make a mistake? And the answer, he doesn't say it out loud, but deep down he knows yes. He let something beautiful grow lonely. He let your light grow dim, trying to ignite his. He let you feel alone while still being emotionally tied to him. That realization is heavy because now he understands. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking him to meet you where you stood, and he chose not to. But now he's standing where you used to stand. And it's cold. It's quiet. And for the first time, he feels what it's like to want more from someone who's gone still. That's the emotional reckoning. The understanding that he didn't just lose you. He lost the version of himself that felt important to someone like you. And let me be clear, this is where the ego dies. This is where pride begins to melt. This is where truth breaks through the noise. Because for the first time, he's not in control anymore. He's no longer the one who decides when the story continues. He's no longer the one who delays vulnerability to protect his image. He's no longer the one who gets to make you wait. Now he's waiting for a message that may never come. Waiting for a sign that he still matters. Waiting for anything to take away the weight of this silence. But here's the twist. You're not waiting with him. You're not watching the clock. You're not checking for signs. You're not analyzing his moves. Because during this silence, you've changed too. You've found peace in letting go. You've found strength in stillness. You've learned that you don't need to be chosen by someone to be valuable. You are no longer looking for validation in someone else's eyes. That is your evolution. And he sees it now. He sees that the version of you he once knew, the one who needed him no longer exists. You've become the woman who doesn't explain her silence. Who doesn't shrink for comfort. Who doesn't return. Just because someone finally realized her worth. You've become the lesson. And he's realizing that lessons don't stay just because you finally decided to learn. They move on. And the worst part of regret is knowing that you didn't lose someone to someone else. You lost them to your own delay, to your ego, to your pride, to your belief that they'd wait forever. But no one with self-worth waits forever. And now, as he sits in the space you left behind, one thought echoes louder than the rest. I didn't think she'd actually let go, but she did. You did, and he'll feel that every time he wonders if it's already too late. It always happens this way. Her realizes But only after you've already let go. He comes back not because the timing is right, but because his comfort has run out. Not because he wants to love you properly, but because he's afraid of living without the version of you that once did. And by the time he fully understands the depth of what he lost, you've evolved into a version of yourself that no longer needs what he has to offer. This is the final realization. The moment where his heart finally catches up to everything his ego tried to ignore. And now all the silence he dismissed, all the distance he once weaponized, all the love he took for granted is crashing down on him. Not in rage, not in tears, but in clarity. You're the piece he didn't know he needed. The presence he always assumed would wait. The safe space he thought he'd never lose. But your absence is louder than your presence ever was. And suddenly he hears it everywhere. In the stillness of his mornings, in the silence of his phone, in the emptiness of moments that used to be filled with your voice. This is the part that hurts him the most. You didn't leave with a scream. You didn't leave to prove a point. You left quietly, and that silence became permanent. See, he thought the story would end on his terms. He thought the chapter would close when he said so. He thought he'd always have time to turn it around. But time doesn't wait for ego. And love doesn't survive on potential. By the time he was ready, you were already gone, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And he can feel the difference. There's no longing in your eyes. No softness in your silence. No traces of hope in your stillness. He looks at you now, and he doesn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. Because this isn't the woman who begged for closure. This isn't the woman who checked his online status. This isn't the woman who used to over-explain her worth. This is the woman who remembered who she was. And that's the final sting. He wanted the woman who waited. He now faces the woman who won't. Let's go deeper. When he reaches out finally, he might say everything you want to hear. I didn't realize what I had. I messed up. I never stopped thinking about you. I should have fought harder. But what used to sound like salvation now sounds like too late. Because timing matters. And sometimes the apology comes after the damage is already shaped a new version, one that no longer fits the past. And that's the version standing here now. You see, letting go doesn't always look like blocking someone or deleting their number. Sometimes letting go looks like not responding with the same emotional grip. Not feeling the pull to fix, to prove, to explain. Sometimes letting go is just peace. And you found it. That's the thing he didn't count on. That silence wouldn't change how he saw you. It would change how you saw him. You've had space now. Time to breathe. Time to reflect. Time to see who he really was when he thought you'd never leave. And now that you're seeing clearly, you're no longer craving what you used to chase. This is what happens when you heal in silence. You begin to outgrow the people who only knew how to love you conditionally. You begin to build a life that doesn't revolve around someone else's availability. You begin to realize it was never about getting him back. It was about getting yourself back. Let's get brutally honest for a second. If he had responded earlier, if he had stepped up, when your heart still had open doors, if he had chosen you without making you beg for it, maybe the story would have ended differently. But he didn't. And now you've outgrown the chapter he's trying to return to. You've rewritten your story without him as the main character. And it's not about revenge. It's not about ego. It's about evolution. You no longer live in the emotional where you needed to be seen by him. You've moved. And he's knocking on the door of an old version that no longer lives there. He's looking for the woman to break herself to fit into his world. But she's not available. Because she doesn't need to be. Because now you choose who gets access. Now you don't prove your value, you protect it. Now You're not looking for someone to love you back. You're building a life that loves you forward. And here's what's ironic. Now that you finally detached, now that you finally stopped chasing, now that you finally become whole on your own, now he wants you. Not because he suddenly became a better man, but because you're no longer waiting for one. This is the final realization. The moment he understands that what he lost wasn't just a person. It was a chance to grow with you, to rise with you, to meet you at the level you were willing to love him from. But that chance was buried under his comfort. And now all he has left is the echo of your absence. And the most humbling truth of all, you're okay. You're not bitter. You're not waiting. You're not hoping he changes. You've already changed. And that's what he'll feel every time he remembers your name. Not guilt, not anger, but reverence. Because he'll know that the greatest thing he ever lost was the woman who finally found herself